Good morning, welcome to my Esoteric Symbols tour. I'm Dr. Paul Karitsis, and today we'll be discussing the formative force of Jove, actively expressed by the planet Jupiter and passively by the metal tin. And here's a sample of tin over here. That's what tin looks like. It's a very gleaming metal, very lovely. Very easy on the eyes, one would say. Like the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. The formative force actively expressed by the planet Jupiter and passively by the metal tin represents a rupture that stands much closer to the feminine aesthetic pole of lunar consciousness than to the masculine aesthetic pole of solar consciousness. We know this by looking at the relative position of the geometric figures on the esoteric symbol that expresses this power. So the lunar crescent sprouts from the level arm of the cross, meaning that the Jovian force actually manifests between that of the Saturnine and the lunar. Sitting between the two just mentioned, the Jovian influence facilitates reattainment of the original paradisal state of receptivity and purity, which is also indigenous to the lunar indicator. Under this little energetic pocket are symbolized by the Jovian force. The soul awakens, incarnates, acquires sentience, and begins to emerge from the chaos and density of the elemental quartet. The initial upward movement that breaks the spell of paralytic inertia, an indigenous condition, of course, of the prima materia, or the base substance, is generated by the intellectual and spiritual powers of the unconscious and raises the coagulating soul out of the abyssal depths, wholly regenerated and transformed. Alchemically speaking, this stage can be equated to the chemical process of distillation or sublimation, which seeks to extract the volatile spirit from its base matter by subjecting the entire body to sweltering temperatures and vaporizing it into a condensate. As a rule of thumb, refinement is hinged upon the total amount of distillations that the condensate is subjected to. A greater number of cycles will always harness a purer substance. The properties and uses of Jove's metal have been known since about the 3rd millennium BCE. The ancient Persians incorporated it into their jewelry, whilst the ancient Egyptians made ample use of its salts as a mordant for dyeing materials. Acting as its principal advocate in the ancient world, the Phoenicians imported tin from the Near East, along with the British Cornwall, a place both revered and renowned for its tin deposits since the dawn of the Bronze Age. Homer himself, no doubt cognizant of the qualitative connection between the planetary god Jupiter and the metal tin, alludes to it in his poem The Odyssey, when the protagonist Odysseus beaches ashore the enchanting shores of Cornwall. Interestingly, the etymological root of our contemporary term for the metal can probably be traced back to the 8th century BCE, a date which is also agreed upon by the existing scholarly consensus to encompass the life and times of this great epic poet. Living in an area of Italy which constitutes modern-day Tuscany at this time were the Etruscans, a pantheistic and polytheistic race, either from the indigenous Villanova culture or the Near East, who called the Jovian emanation tins and tinia. Consequently, ample trade with the British Isles enabled cultural exchange and linguistic adoption of these terms by the Anglo-Saxons. Many centuries afterward, the Romans ascribed to tin the name plumum album, a Latin word meaning whitehead, and proceeded to mastermind an innovation of the highest caliber. Firstly, the metal would be unearthed from the ground and separated from its ore through searing fires harnessed by metallurgical purification. Following the extraction, metallurgists would render the metal into tinfoil and subsequently pass it onto glassmakers whose dexterous hands would work it into the face of mirrors. After the Romans, practical use of the metal gradually dwindled and died out. It wasn't until about the late Middle Ages that tin experienced a resurgence, spawning to life by the operative ambitions of many alchemists like Paracelsus and Johannes Agricola. Of interest to most of these was the alchemical preparation of the metal's salts, a procedure which involved drenching calcined salts in vinegar and then heating the entire admixture in an athanor, which is an alchemical furnace, to produce salt crystals. Igniting these with charcoal produced the metal oxide. Alchemists of the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance were acquainted with both the stannic chloride, or the tin tetrachloride, called sal Jovis, and the metallic binoxide or dioxide, which is known as calx Jovis. Their association to the Jovian planet and deity, as well as to the Jovian qualities of expansion, cheerfulness, wisdom, and preservation, is implied in their shared use of the epithets Jovis. Tin was sometimes sublimated with mercury, sulfur, and sal ammoniac to create a golden crystalline powder called aurum musivum, which is mosaic gold, which was used for the treatment of nervous disorders like chronic hysteria and muscular convulsions. At around this time, the metal was also found suitable for incorporation into pewter, a pliable alloy that could be fashioned into a great many implements, including household utensils and nearly all church paraphernalia. Like its celestial equivalent, which radiates with a brilliance and nobleness that seem eternal to our ephemeral eyes, our corporeal tin radiates a light and resists deterioration. Divers who examined 8 tons of pewter within a 15th century Portuguese shipwreck off the coast of Namibia some time ago claimed that the alloy gleamed in such a way that abetted the illusion that it had just sunk. So, and the formative force that we're speaking about is expressed here. That's the planet Jupiter. And the metal tin, I believe, is there. And I'll quickly show you. There we go. That's the symbol for Jupiter. And the same symbol for tin, which... no, that's Mars. I believe it's that one. Yeah, I think that's it. Whoop. Can't find it now. Oh well, I'll show you in the next episode. I will see you next time for an exposition on the last of our formative forces, which is that of Saturn, Saturn-led. See you then.